Welcome to Powering Through Life, the podcast. I'm your host, Teresa Sims. I am a coach, an author, wife, mom, survivor, and thriver. Each week on Powering Through Life, my guest and I will discuss a special topic that is close to their heart. Together, we will explore the challenges they faced in life and learn what strategies and tools they have used to power through their lives. So get ready to be inspired, motivated, and let's motivate the world through conversation. Welcome once again to Powering Through Life. I have such an incredible guest with me today. Her name is Terina Maldonado. Did I say that correctly?
You got it.
Perfect. I like to be accurate. So Terina is a survivor in every sense of the word, empowered with resilience, empathy, and determination by living through child abuse, sexual assault, and leaving a high-demand religion. As a coach and speaker, Terina now helps others confidently claim their voice and live an authentic life full of purpose. Oh, beautiful. Terina, welcome to Powering Through Life.
Thank you, Teresa. It's so great to be here with you.
I'm very excited that we're doing this today, and I really do enjoy your topic, and I think it's just so prevalent for this day and age. It's being unapologetically authentic. That's a mouthful.
It is.
Yeah.
But it also makes your life really full.
Absolutely. So, Terina, would you want to give us some background information on your story and your journey that you've gone through?
Yeah. So, like you mentioned in my bio, I grew up in a home that was very turbulent, and there was a lot of trauma and abuse that happened. And so there's been a lot of healing that I've done the last couple decades as I've been an adult and navigating life, trying to recover from those things that happened. And shortly after leaving home, I was in a relationship with a young man, and we were talking about getting married. We were still in the high demand religion where sex before marriage was not okay. That was like a sin next to murder if you have sex before marriage. We did end up having sex, and I really felt bad about that. I went and repented for that. And then years later, in accompaniment with the Me Too movement, I began to get educated on what consent is. And all of a sudden it struck me that was not consensual. And so as like a 30-something-year-old mom with 3 kids, I'm having to process all of this, along with, then having things arise from, other childhood issues of things that I've survived. And so it was a lot to process, and it was a lot to kind of understand even myself. Like, how could it have taken me so long to figure out that that's what that was? Shouldn't I have known that right away? And so there was a lot of learning and a lot of self-compassion that I had to employ as I navigated that.
Terina, did you have enough background information? Were you taught enough when you were young in the right areas to know that was unacceptable?
No. And that was something that I had, where I brought in that self-compassion, was understanding that I didn't have the foundational knowledge that a lot of people have. In my home, I was not taught that my body was mine and that it needed respected. That wasn't something that I was taught. I was not taught anything about sex outside of, it's only a marriage and that's all that you do. Like, the concept that sexual assault could happen within marriage was not even something that had ever even occurred to me. And on those lines, the concept of sexual assault happening in a relationship that was committed, he was my boyfriend and I loved him, and I thought, that he loved me. So how could it be that? Consent. But I had no concept of consent and what that was. And so I had to shift from a lot of self-blame and self-judgment of, because there's a whole spectrum of emotions that we go through when we're processing things. And definitely part of that for me was, how could you be so stupid? How could you not know? Like, what person has this happen to them and doesn't realize it? And so as I began to look at the fact that, I was raised in a very patriarchal, purity culture, religion, and family, these things were not taught to me. And so, of course, I didn't have the information to really solidly put that together. But I also began to reflect more honestly with myself. And I realized I did know that it wasn't right. There was hurt. There was a lot of upset around that experience. I just didn't have the right words to label it, to name it, to know what it was, to help me process and heal from it properly.
Yeah, very true. And I'm going to be nosy and say, what happened to the relationship?
So, having not put that together, I just, like I said, I went and I repented for what had happened. And my first thought was, we've got to get married. We've had sex, like that's what needs to happen. So that was still kind of like, we had kind of talked about that already at that point. And so that was kind of where we were going. And then it just became apparent that he was not nice to me. He was not kind to me. He did not treat me well. And this wasn't a person that I really wanted to spend the rest of my life with. And so the relationship did end. I ended the relationship, and hesitantly, partly because then I knew like I'd never be able to tell my kids, like, I've only ever had sex with one man and it's your husband and that's the way it should be. There was that hanging on me, and that decision of whether to stay with this person who was clearly not a healthy relationship and not good for me. But when that's what you've been taught to believe and how you behave and what is most important, that almost became more important than my own emotional and physical safety and well-being.
Oh my goodness. And how did your family react to that?
They didn't know.
Oh, okay. Well, sometimes that's better, isn't it?
Yeah, no. And as I was deeply hurting at the end of this relationship, I couldn't talk to them about it. And I couldn't tell them why I was so broken and so sad, because that would mean having to admit what we had done, right?
Right. So what kind of emotions in the beginning, when you were starting to have this conflict when you were older, where did you go in here in your head? Did you go into guilt, shame, avoidance, isolation, all those different things that kind of sometimes creep up on us?
Yeah, there definitely was a lot of avoidance. I think that I knew that there was still hurt that needed healed around that relationship, but I couldn't understand why. Like on this logical level, I was like, that was so long ago and I'm happy I'm not with him. Why is it still bothering me? And it wasn't until the Me Too movement and learning what consent was, and that sexual assault wasn't strictly some stranger in a dark alleyway, and that typically it's actually a person that that I then began to, the question in my mind wouldn't stop. It wouldn't go away. Like, was it rape? And I would just brush it away. No. But it kept coming back. And so I had to ask that question and sit with that question.
That must have been a horrible place to be sitting in that thought, that idea, that potential. Geez. What did you do? How did you change the thought process behind that?
Therapy, for one.
That's always a good place to start, isn't it?
Right? I went to see a therapist to help process all of this. I didn't really have the understanding of self-compassion that I do now, but definitely like bringing in self-compassion was was key to be able to say, it's okay that you didn't know. That's okay. And to remind myself that I'm trying to beat myself up over how long it took me to realize this, to put this together, to begin healing this specifically, beating myself up about that is not going to help the healing process. So just come to a space of acceptance for what is and move forward from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So is that the first step in your ability to live your life authentically?
Yeah. I think that's definitely one of the first steps, is being able to just be where you are and accept that and then grow from there.
What's the next step, do you think?
I think the next step is really discovering who you are. There's so many people, myself included, who start out making so many major life decisions based on what they're told they're supposed to do and the way they're supposed to live their life, whether that is specifically said and stated or whether it's just messaging we receive through different areas of entertainment or societal messages or familial messages. We all get messages about what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a wife, what it means to be a mom, what it means to be a friend, and how you're supposed to do those things. And I wonder, how often do we stop and consider, does that feel in alignment with me to be making decisions about that? Or am I maybe making these decisions just because it's what I'm supposed to?
Well, that's a great one, because we have this definition of what we're supposed to be, what a wife is, what a mother is, what this is, what that is. But that doesn't always mean that that fits the umbrella of who Terina is or who Teresa is, right? You have to find a way to make it your own and to live within whatever you decide that definition is going to be.
Yes, yes. And it's a really brave thing to ask yourself that question, to really sit and be honest with yourself. Am I making some decisions in life solely because it's what I'm supposed to do? And then the next question is, well, what does that mean? What would I rather be doing?
Very true. You know, I had those thoughts too when I was young. I got married young. I had children young because I was told, that's European background. That's what you were supposed to do. You got married, you had your children right away, you got them out of got them going early in life. And in some ways, I'm glad I did it young because now I have energy later on in life. However, I'm not 100% convinced that that was the role in life that I needed to fulfill for my life. So it's, big questions that we need to ask ourselves, right?
Right. And sitting with those questions, you can't go back and you can't change that, but you can then be more mindful as you move forward in the decisions that you're making, to check in with yourself and your own intuition about whether this is something that you want to do. Is this
Yes.
really something that is in alignment with who I am, or is this in alignment with who I'm supposed to be?
Yeah, exactly. And I stopped and I asked myself as well, did I do the best I possibly could with the information and the knowledge that I had at that time? I think I did. How
I can
about
tell
you?
you without doubt that you did, because every human is always doing the best that they can.
Yeah.
And even if you look back at a situation and you're like, but I could have done better, if you could have, you would have.
Mm.
And so just accept that you've always done the best that you could. And maybe if in a circumstance you didn't live up to your own standards, your own expectations, then that's an opportunity to pause, reflect, and maybe think how you will do better in the future. But don't beat yourself up over the failings and shortcomings and mistakes that you've made, because those have only enlightened a way in which you can then do better in the future.
Absolutely. And I think about the women and the people that raised me. They didn't know any better either. I can't blame them for not giving me the information because they didn't have it. It's a
Absolutely.
cycle, but we can go from here and we can teach our children and the next generation and the following generation how to be different, how to be themselves, and how to live authentically within their own skin.
Yes. The other day, it was like the most everyday moment. We had just gotten home from somewhere. I really don't even remember what the conversation was centered around. But my daughter says, if I have kids, blah, 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 blah. That word if just made my heart so happy. The fact that she knows she has a choice, that's a choice that she can make. That made me happy because that wasn't a choice in my life. Like, you get married, you have kids. That is what you do. And my daughter knows that you can make a choice about whether you want to have children or not.
Well, see, you've made a difference in some lives already, and that's fantastic. And starting at a young age is really important too, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So what are the biggest challenges that people have to overcome to be able to live fully and authentically within themselves?
I think that fear is probably the biggest one. And there's several components to the fear that is going to be around this stepping into living for yourself and authentically. And one of them is a fear of the unknown, right? Like, I don't know what this is like to really just mindfully make decisions based truly on my own desires and my wants and my needs. But the other one is a fear of probably disappointing others, judgment of others, and how that's going to impact your relationships. And so I think probably the biggest one is that component of fear.
Yeah, I definitely would agree. And I was just discussing with my coach earlier today about boundaries. So I think boundaries play a huge, huge part in this as well, don't they?
Absolutely. In my work with my clients, that's like the last component that we work on is boundaries, because that's what you really have to be successful at being yourself and not being apologetic with that, and having healthy relationships with those around you as you do that, is healthy boundaries.
No, I totally agree. We need to teach the people around us how we want to be treated, how we expect to be treated, and vice versa. It's not just a one-way street. Healthy boundaries are for all of us.
Yes, yes. I think there's a little bit of a misconception around boundaries now, that it's just like telling people like, this is how you behave and this is what you do. And really, boundaries is not as much about the other person as it is about yourself. It's letting people know how you want to be treated. It's letting people know what is acceptable for you, what your values are, and what you will tolerate and accept. And their responses, their actions, their choices, that's theirs, not yours.
Absolutely. Perfect and well said. Definitely well said. And it's up to that other person to learn to set their own boundaries as well. But when it's in a relationship, I mean, open communication is so key to having those boundaries and to letting the other person know without anger, without judgment, without criticism, without blaming that, hey, look, I'm not getting what I need. Let's talk about this.
Right? Is there anything much more vulnerable than saying to your intimate partner, I need more connection?
Yeah, that's a big one. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So do you find any other challenges that we didn't name? So there's fear, there's boundaries. Do you find any other challenges?
I think that sometimes people really struggle with self-care and self-love. And if you're not able to really, like, the foundational piece is getting to know yourself and who you are, figure that out. And then you have to really fall in love with that person and take care of them. And we live in a society that's just so results driven, and we're so busy that it can seem selfish to put yourself as the top priority in your life. But I feel like when you don't do that, you don't have what you need to give to everybody else. And so it's really a necessity to take that time to take care of yourself every day and to really love yourself. And that includes bringing in a lot of that self-compassion, because we're human, and part of being human is not perfection, right? And so we have to have grace and hold space for ourselves as we're navigating life, that we're not going to do this perfectly, but you love yourself enough to learn from the things where you wish you would have done a little bit better.
Absolutely. And don't blame yourself, because there's nothing good that can come out of blame.
Right.
And
I like to say nobody's ever shamed themselves to being a better person.
Yeah, that's a good one. That is a good one. And shame is such a thing that's dumped on us when we're young, and it's somebody else's issue. It's not ours. It's been created by somebody else. Same as judgment, same as all this other stuff. The seed wouldn't be there if it wasn't planted somewhere along the line.
Right? I don't know a single 2, 3, 4-year-old that ever has said to themselves, like, you're so stupid. Why did you do that? No, like, if they're playing, if they're eating and they spill their milk, they go, uh-oh, gotta clean it up. You know, like, they're not sitting there spilling milk and then going, oh my goodness, you're so stupid. You just made a mess of the whole table. Like, maybe a parent says that and then they have that voice in their head, but we're not innately born with this judgment and this shame on ourselves.
Yeah. So why do we allow it, right? But it happens before we even recognize it's happening. And sometimes from a very young age. And other times it happens because we allow a loved one who's very, we feel we can't do without, to put that on us. And it's not right. Would they judge themselves that way?
Yeah. And that's where fear around boundaries comes in. If you have a relationship that you feel you just can't live without, but they're treating you in a way that just is offensive to your soul, right? How scary is it to take a moment and say, I really can't have you speak to me that way. I'm working on speaking to myself with respect and love, and I need you to speak to me with respect and love. Oh, that's terrifying.
Oh, those are fighting words, honestly. In some relationships they would be, but let's hope they're not. But you know what? It can
in a
happen.
Healthy relationship, that should spur conversation and respect and mutual assistance towards this goal.
That's right. And that is the right way to look at it, not the way I said it, but that does happen a lot too.
It does.
And we need to sit down.
Yeah. That can be an indicator that maybe there's something deeper than just you and partner can navigate. And maybe it's time to bring in a therapist or a coach that can help you with some of these issues.
Absolutely. Well pointed out. That's definitely good information. So as you've created a life where you show up as yourself, for yourself, unapologetically, what's been your biggest reward?
The freedom that I feel.
Oh, elaborate, please.
Right, like, and I will preface this by saying I'm far from perfect, and it's a practice, and it's something that I cultivate and something that I'm mindful of and I work on. But it is so freeing to just not care what other people think, right? And to be able to go to the grocery store without a makeup and bra and not worry if I'm going to run into a neighbor. I don't care, because if they don't like that I look like this, that's their problem, not mine. To be able, if my neighbor comes and surprise knocks on my door, welcome them in and say, oh, hey, like, sorry, there's dishes in the sink and laundry on the couch and there's still dinner on the table from last night, but how are you? What's going on? And not care if they think that I'm a slob because my house looks like this, because I know I'm not a slob. I know that last night I spent time with my family and we were doing things together, and that took priority over housekeeping chores. Yeah. Right. And so it just creates a great sense of freedom to be able to love myself through mistakes and challenges, to be able to accept myself for who I am and all of my imperfections, and know that the way that other people perceive me is just that, their perception. It's not the truth about who I am.
Oh, well said. That is so true. Because you cannot change someone else's opinion or their thoughts or their whatever you want to call it. That's theirs. You can only change what you're in control of.
Absolutely. And you don't know what influences their judgments and their beliefs of you. They could have a lot of life circumstances that maybe lead them to think very incorrect things about you. And that's just from their life experiences, and it has nothing to do with you or your interactions with them. That could come from an interaction they've had with somebody that just reminds you of them.
Yeah,
or
that's
them,
true.
You of them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've all had experiences. We've all lived. We've all had, things happen, things occur to us. Maybe we've been bullied, maybe we haven't been. Maybe we've been the star of our lives up until this point, and then one thing just sets that person off the rails. But we need to know that it's not impossible to take our lives back, to take control of our own power and our own self-worth and our own self-esteem.
Yes, yes. And to know that that doesn't happen overnight. I'm
Yes.
40 years old and I've been working a long time on this, and it's still not perfect, but I have consistently and voraciously worked on self-improvement and kept going. When something didn't work, I tried something else. And even if something did work, I'm looking at what could this help too. And so just be tenacious with your growth and your healing, because it's possible and it's there, but it's not going to happen overnight. In fact, I think it's kind of a lifelong journey. And so just accept that it's a journey that you're on, and maybe there's not a destination. So just enjoy it while you're on the journey.
Exactly. And while you're growing, you're still going. So,
yes,
as long as you're growing, you're doing something fantastic, and you're growing to help yourself improve and growing in the right direction. Otherwise, if you're just kind of stagnated, that's not even a life, that's an existence, I think. And maybe we're trying to achieve that perfectionism, which in my world doesn't exist.
Perfection is an illusion that doesn't really exist except in the minds of people, and all that does is create so much stress, anxiety, pressure, and shame on ourselves. So please let go of the idea of perfection.
Yeah, perfection. And my other word that I say doesn't really exist is normal. It's there. What is the true definition of that? I have no clue. And it doesn't matter. As long as we keep trying to be the best people we can be and live in our authenticity and live to our human compassion and share what we know with others.
Yes, I've had so many clients ask me, is that normal? Is that weird? And I just say, you know what? You're one of about 8 billion humans on the earth. I guarantee you're not the only one experiencing this. Maybe you're the only one that is experiencing exactly this, but there are other people who are experiencing the same type of thing, I promise.
And that is so true. And that's why through Powering Through Life, we're here to share our stories, our wisdom, and our experiences and knowledge so that we can motivate this world through conversation. And I think your topic is so impactful because there is someone else out there that has experienced something similar to you that needs to hear that it doesn't matter how old you are,
or how many years it takes.
Exactly. Lifelong journey. But you know what? It's worth it in the end because you just don't give up. You're not alone. Terina's been through a lot of things. I've been through similar things. We're both still here kicking behind like there's nobody's business, right? And we're going to keep going. And that's why we're back doing this podcast of Powering Through Life so that we can share the information from these wonderful guests like Terina. I mean, you have just been a godsend in my life, lady. And I really want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah. And I really, as well, want to thank you for sharing your story with Powering Through Life and the listeners, because it's, like I say, one person, if we can change one person, we've been successful. Or we not change, but if we can help one person by
Right.
sharing, then
If
it's
one
all
person feels less alone in their experience, then our conversation is more than worth it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have a favorite saying or quote that you like to use?
There's one by Brene Brown that I'm not going to get exactly right, but the essence of it is stop trying to be who you're supposed to be and be who you truly are.
That's great. I think if that's not the exact quote, you should make that your quote. So because that is powerful and it's so true. Just live your own life authentically and within your own skin and do the best you can and never give up.
Yes. There's always hope.
Absolutely. So Terina, do you want to share your some contact information? I know we're going to have it with the segment. It will all be posted, but if you want to quickly just give us your email address or your website, that would be great.
Yeah, my email and website are both really simple. The email is Terina@terinamaldonado.com and my website is terinamaldonado.com. I'm also on most of the social medias, like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. So you can find me and connect there if you want to have a little bit of fun. I try and keep my content fun and enriching.
I can't tell that from you at all. I mean, I'm being sarcastic. No, your smile has lit up the room, honestly. And the energy that you exude because you've done the work. You can see the joy and happiness in your face and your eyes. And that's what I look for is the eyes. And there's joy there.
There sure is.
There sure is. So you, my dear, are the poster child for living your life authentically and unapologetically. And for that, I want to thank you.
Thank you.
So listeners, I really encourage you to get in touch with Terina. She is just such a ray of sunshine and has brought such joy to my life just today. But we have talked previously, but every time I speak with this lady, I just am so jazzed up because her energy just comes through the screen and it just ignites the flame. And that's what we want for you, is for your flame to be ignited through these conversations. Isn't that right, Terina?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you for being such an awesome guest today. And listeners, get in touch with Terina today. And you can find all of the segments on my website, terisasims.com, my many social Facebook pages, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Spreaker, and there will be a few more coming. So get in touch. And I look forward to seeing you again next time on Powering Through Life. Thank you for listening to Powering Through Life, where we explore life's challenges and learn valuable insights from my guests about how they have powered through their lives to survive and thrive. We can learn incredible lessons by sharing and motivating the world through conversation. You can access all of the Powering Through Life episodes on my website, terisasims.com, YouTube, Facebook, and Spreaker. So join us again next time for another inspiring conversation.